Mr. Vice Chairman, sir, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on the Banking Public Financial Institutions and Negotiable Instruments Law Amendment Bill 1988. Sir, if we go back to the history when the announcement was made by Srimati Indira Gandhi, our former Prime Minister, we had seen that there was opposition even from the congressmen against the progressive thinking, and they said that the banks should not be nationalized. But Indira Gandhi was committed to it. She made it a point to see that the banks are nationalized so that the gates are opened for the purpose of helping the poor and the downtrodden. Sir, we have to accept the fact that the banks have become public institutions nowadays, and even the poor people can go there and get loans. I would like to submit that in some banks, the system of lending money and providing financial assistance to the small businessmen, agriculturists, and the persons who are small vendors has not been taken very seriously. In the last year's budget, that is the 1988-89 budget, which was presented by the then Finance Minister, the thrust was given to agriculture. Rupees 2000 crores were allocated for the rural development programs and rupees 3000 crores were given for the benefit of the agriculturists who are employed in the agricultural work. Sir, still, I would like to say that the benefits have not reached them for the simple reason that the banks are looking at the agriculturists and also small businessmen and vendors as persons who will not be able to repay the amount. The I would like to submit that the reality is that the big businessmen who have taken loans of crores and crores of rupees from the banks have not repaid the loans in time. There are several methods adopted by the banks to collect the money from the farmers who have taken the money from agricultural purposes. They collect from the sugar mills, they collect from the marketing societies, and from several places the money is collected from them. But the banks are treating the agriculturists as unwanted elements. That tendency among the bank officials should go. Now, sir, they have started a system of bank finances to the agriculturists within a radius of about 20 kilometers, which will definitely benefit the agriculturists. Sir, the other important aspect is that in spite of the deposits mounting, there is a system of paying commission to the promoters in which a lot of bungling is going on. They are paying promoters commission to those persons who mobilize the deposits. When it is a government institution which is depositing the money, why should they pay promoters commission? To whom are they paying? This particular aspect of promoters' commission should be removed because the finances are there to benefit the people. The officers are there in the banks to collect the deposits. Why should there be a middleman, just like a promoter, to get the commission from the bank? Sir, the other aspect is that they are introducing computers. Sir, it created a furor in the minds of the workers working in the banks. Some unions agree, some unions fail to agree. Some of the banks have introduced computers. Sir, the assurance which is given by the finance ministry that the employees will not be retrenched and that they will be accommodated elsewhere should be followed. They should also find out the avenues for employing those persons in some allied works. They are opening new branches. They can be accommodated in those new branches. Sir, even in the rural areas, as the Honorable Member has just mentioned, the opening of a branch is not a discrete thing. When one Indian bank opens a branch in a particular village, immediately the State Bank goes there, the UCO Bank goes there. They do not apply their mind, they do not find out what will be the total business there. They should see to its viability while opening a branch. That system is not being followed. I am talking about the southern region. The banks want to have a competition there, but the competition should be on the basis of population there and the area in which they are operating. But simply opening a branch without transacting any business will be a burden on the bank itself. Sir, about the appointment of directors, I would like to submit that in most of the banks, the directors have not been appointed for the past 2 or 3 years. It may have been due to various reasons. Representatives of the people should be definitely represented there. But in most of the banks, directors have not been appointed for 2 years and 3 years, and in some banks, their full strength is not there. Only a skeleton group of directors is functioning there. Sir, another important burning problem is misappropriation by bank officials. The fraud and misappropriation by bank officials run into lakhs and lakhs of rupees, which is a burden on the bank on these amounts have been misappropriated by them. Mr. Chairman, this is a bill to be sent for eliciting public opinion on a matter which concerns not only the political parties but the public life of the country as a whole. My approach in this matter, subject to public discussion and conclusions arising out of it, is somewhat different from what has been said by the two previous speakers. Right at the beginning, I should like to make it clear that I am in favor of cheap elections. I want to rule out money as far as possible from the context of the processes of our parliamentary institutions and democracy because money has undoubtedly a corrupting influence. I wonder what will happen if these restraints were to be revoked. Would that lead to honesty and elimination of big money in election affairs? I do not think it would be the contention of Mr. Bhargava that by abolishing these restraints we are going to have cheap elections or some kind of curbs on election expenditure. I think what he wants is to make people look somewhat honest, or rather, he does not want dishonesty to be institutionalized in the shape of some kind of acceptance of it by the society. His approach in this matter essentially is somewhat moral, but it suffers from illusions. Now, let me come to the other aspects of the matter, but I should like to add here that if the object is one of promoting cheap elections, eliminating the power of money in elections, it is not achieved by removing the restraints here. You may have the consolation that some people who are behaving dishonestly are asked not to behave dishonestly by making dishonesty in this case the law of the land, and dishonesty therefore is naturally the use of money to influence the voters. You are spending huge sums and are suppressing it. This by itself is not the main crime. It is not as if the crime takes place only when people submit returns to the election commission after the election is over. The crime, social and political, takes place the moment you use the power of money to influence elections, gerrymandering or otherwise, the indulge in all kinds of corrupt practices. It is there you are committing a crime, although Mr. Bhargava wants that after having committed the crime, there should not be any accountability about it in any way. Now, the main problem that we are facing in our democratic institutions or elections, if you like, is the influence and privilege of money. I should like it to be curbed, if not wholly eliminated. I am realist in this matter. As long as the capitalist classes remain, as long as the wealthy remain, as long as the haves and the haves not divide the society, money will have its part to play. It cannot be completely eliminated because the present society in which we are living is largely influenced and dominated not only in electoral matters but in various other matters also by the power of money. Therefore, I have no illusion that By changing certain laws of this kind, we will be getting out of the clutches of the big money in this matter. Now, that power will remain. All that we can do now by legislation and otherwise by practices, conventions, etc., is to reduce that power of money, that impact of money on out political life, whether it is election or something else. This is the most we can achieve. Now, I ask, can we achieve this thing by accepting the suggestion that Mr. Bhargava has made? I do not think so. When the election law was framed, it was perhaps intended that some kind of a restraint would be put if the election expenses were to be submitted to the election commission after the elections. That was the intention, but this objective has not been fulfilled. Why it has not been fulfilled, we must ask ourselves. It would not do for us to say in a physical sense that some people are honest and some people are dishonest. That would be an answer given by some people who are not conversant with the political affairs of the country, the realities of our political life. This objective has not been fulfilled because, in the first place, the ruling classes in our country who are in the control of our state, of our economic life, and so on, want to get things done largely with the power of their funds and money. That is why they bring in money into the elections, and as long as they are there, as long as they have the opportunity to do so, it will continue whatever law you may have. How is it that the Congress leaders who used the get elected in the old days, in the days of the British, without spending anything, now have to spend so much money? I am talking about the Congress because the Congress has been in the field for the long time.